Students, in this video I'm going to go over some exercises on how to find the inverse function. So in the last video, what I had done in the lesson was showed you where the application of finding the inverse function, had some context to it. In this exercise, there's no context, right? So we are trying to practice a skill. So in order for us to find the inverse function, okay, there is a set of steps, okay, that we're going to take, okay. So what we're going to do, okay, right now I have f of x is equal to negative x plus 5. What I want to do, okay, well, this x right here, what's meant by this, okay, is this is the input, right, just like before. And what we're going to get as a result is the value of f, which is our y-coordinate, and that's the output. So what I'm going to do to simplify this function notation, I'm just going to call the left-hand side here f, and the right-hand side remains the same. And what I'm going to do is I am going to do just that. I am going to isolate x just like I did in the last video, okay? But then at the end, I'm going to do something slightly different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 5, and I'm going to divide by negative 2. So now I have x is equal to f minus 5 over negative 2. What's different what's the next step that's going to be different is I'm going to be replacing x and f with f and x. So what do I mean by this? I'm going to turn x into f and f into x. And what this is the inverse function, okay? So this is my inverse function. So f inverse, okay, is equal to x minus 5 all over negative 2. Or, to write it in function notation, that's my solution there, okay? All right, let's take a look at the next one. So I have f of x is equal to negative x plus 4 over 6, okay? So again, the same approach, I'm going to call this guy here f. So I have f is equal to negative x plus 4 over 6. I'm going to isolate x, so multiply by 6, I get 6f, is equal to negative x plus 4. Subtract both sides by 4. 6f minus 4 is equal to negative x. Divide both sides by negative 1, I get x is equal to negative 6f plus 4. I am going to replace x with f and f with x, and I get f is equal to negative 6x plus 4. And what this is actually f inverse. So my answer is f inverse of x is equal to negative 6x plus 4. I am going to skip that question because it's very, very similar. So let's take a look at these questions over here. So what this is the cube root. This guy is the cube root. Okay? What is meant by the cube root? Well, this is the same thing as x minus 1 square over 2 to the power of 1/3. That's what that means. Okay, so in order for us to find the inverse function, we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to say f is equal to quantity x minus 1 over 2 to the power of 1/3. I want to try to isolate x. So in order for me to isolate x here, okay, I will have to undo this power of 1/3. How am I going to do that? Well, in order for me to undo the power of 1/3, okay, I'm going to have to cube both sides, okay? So if I do that, I'll end up with f to the third is equal to x minus 1 over 2. Again, what I did here is I cubed both sides. imagine this. If I have x minus 1 over 2 to the 1/3 multiplied by itself 3 times, the exponent, I'm going to have 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. Because I have the same base, I add the exponents. The exponent of the overall expression becomes 1. So now, again, I'm going to solve for x. Multiply both sides by 2. I end up with 2f to the 3rd is equal to x minus 1. Or x is equal to 2f to the 3rd plus 1. And then second to last step here, I want to replace x with f inverse of x and f with the letter x. And that is the solution. Let me see here. Let's do this guy, right? I need to find the inverse of this third root, okay, or not third root, of this cubic equation. So what am I going to do? Same thing, g is equal to negative 2 x minus 2 to the 3rd. I need to bring everything over to isolate x. So the first thing I want to do is I want to divide by negative 2. So if I do that, I'll end up with g over negative 2 is equal to x minus 2 to the 3rd. Now I need to get the x outside of the parentheses. But in order for me to do that, I need to get rid of that cube. So how am I going to get rid of the cube? Well, we need to raise both sides by the power of, can you take a guess? By the power of 1/3. And if we do that, then we'll end up with, I'll write it over here so I have more room. I'll end up with g over negative 2 to the power of 1/3 is equal to x minus 2. I'm going to add both sides by 2. I get x is equal to g over negative 2. And actually that negative can go anywhere. It can go in the middle of the fraction or at the top of the fraction. It doesn't matter. I'll write it above. So x is equal to negative g over 2 to the power of 1/3 plus 2. And last step, this becomes g inverse of x is equal to negative x over 2 to the power of 1/3 plus 2. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the inverse of g of x. And the others are very similar to what I just did. Let's take a look at the next one. Let's take a look at this guy. Again, I want to solve for the inverse. G of x is equal to 4 over x minus 1. Inverse of g of x equal to 4 over x minus 1 minus 3. So let's see what we can do here. Again, it's the same approach. I'm going to replace g of x with g. And I'm going to attempt to solve for x. So I add 3 to both sides. I'm going to multiply both sides by x minus 1. I'm going to try to get the x out of the denominator so that I can then isolate it. So the next step would be g plus 3 times x minus 1 is equal to 4. I'm going to strategically distribute the g plus 3. So I will end up with g plus 3 times x minus g plus 3 times 1, right? And the right-hand side is still equal to 4. I'm going to add over the g plus 3. So I'll end up with g plus 3 times x is equal to 4 plus g plus 3. And then I'm going to divide both sides by g plus 3. And if I do that, I'll end up with x is equal to 4 plus g plus 3 all over g plus 3. Of course, you can simplify this down. This will become g plus 7 over g plus 3 is equal to x. my final answer is G inverse of x is equal to x plus 7 over x plus 3. And then the others are very similar, so I think I'm going to, well, maybe I'll do one more. All right, let's do this guy. Okay, so again, same idea. G, is equal to 3 over negative x plus 3. Isolate x, so I want to get the x out of the denominator. Distribute the g. Subtract 3g from both sides, so I get negative gx is equal to 3 minus 3g. Divide by negative g. So therefore, second to last step here, G inverse of x is equal to 3 minus 3x all over negative x. Or this is the same thing as G inverse of x is equal to 3x minus 3 all over x. Whichever way you write it, it's all the same, but understand sometimes the solutions, if you are checking solutions, if it doesn't necessarily look like your answer, you may need to do a little bit of manipulating, like your answer to make it look like the answer key, or vice versa. So it is important that you be flexible and to apply orders of operations and be comfortable in doing that.